Have you ever been in an argument you knew you couldn't win, but you just didn't want to lose? We've all been there. You're cornered, your points are crumbling, and defeat seems inevitable. But what if I told you there are ways to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, even when you're technically in the wrong? Today, we're diving deep into the art of verbal judo, exploring 9 controversial but surprisingly effective techniques to win any argument. This isn't about being right, it's about being persuasive. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll have an arsenal of rhetorical tricks up your sleeve. Let's start with a classic move, yielding to conquer. Imagine you're arguing with a friend. Instead of hitting them with a wall of resistance, you do something unexpected. You partially agree with them. You say, you know what? That's a really interesting point, and I can see where you're coming from on that. This simple act does 2 things. First, it completely disarms them. They were expecting a fight, but you gave them a handshake. Second, it builds rapport. Suddenly, you're not adversaries anymore. You're 2 people exploring an idea. Once you've lowered their guard, you can gently pivot back to your own perspective. It's like verbal aikido, using their momentum against them to guide the conversation where you want it to go. Next up, the Socratic method. This one is for the thinkers. Instead of making statements, you ask questions. Let's say someone claims working from home is always less productive. Instead of arguing, you ask, that's a strong statement. How do we define productivity? Is it just about hours logged, or is it about the quality of the output? Then you follow up. And are there any studies that account for different job types or individual work styles? You're not attacking their position directly. You're leading them down a path of self-discovery, forcing them to examine the holes in their own logic. More often than not, they'll start to question their own certainty without you ever having to say, you're wrong. You read just the curious guide on their journey to realizing their argument isn't as solid as they thought. Now let's get a little more subtle with a technique I call hypnotize with language. Words are powerful, and the right ones can create a sense of agreement and forward motion. Instead of using harsh, confrontational language, you use soft, inclusive words. Phrases like, wouldn't we all agree that? ... Or perhaps we can look at it this way. ... Double quotes. Create a collaborative atmosphere. You can also use embedded commands. For example, instead of saying you need to accept this, you might say, as you begin to see the logic in this, you'll realize it's the best option. You're gently planting suggestions in their mind, guiding their thoughts, without them even realizing it. It's about creating a trance of agreeableness, making your conclusion feel like their own. Ever heard of the multi-level marketing trick? It's a classic sales technique that works wonders in arguments. You start by presenting an extreme, almost ridiculous proposal. Let's say you want your team to work 1 extra hour per day. You don't ask for that. Instead, you start by proposing a mandatory weekend workday every week. Naturally, everyone will balk at this. It's an outrageous suggestion. After they've vehemently rejected it, you concede and say, okay, you're right, that's too much. How about we just add 1 extra hour to the weekdays instead? Compared to the initial crazy idea, your real request now seems incredibly reasonable and easy to accept. You've anchored their expectations high, so the compromise feels like a huge win for them, even though it was your goal all along. Now, for the scholars among us, we have information bombardment. This is about overwhelming your opponent with a sheer volume of facts, figures, studies, and quotes. It doesn't even matter if they're all perfectly relevant. Just keep hitting them with data. According to a 2019 study from Harvard, ... And then there's the research by Smith and Jones, which indicates, plus, if you look at the quarterly report, you'll see a trend that supports ... double quotes. Your opponent won't have time to check every source or question every data point. The goal is to make yourself look like the undeniable expert in the room. They'll either concede because they feel outmatched, or they'll get so bogged down in the details that they lose track of their original argument. You win by intellectual exhaustion. On the flip side, we have a more street-smart version of this: smoke and mirrors. This is the gossip's favorite tactic. Instead of just using facts, you mix truth with half-truths, speculation, and maybe even a few innocent-sounding falsehoods. It's a verbal smokescreen. You might say something like, I heard from someone who knows that the new policy is actually a test run. They're already seeing problems with it. Which makes sense, because if you look at the official numbers, you can see a slight dip. And everyone's been saying it's causing issues. You're weaving a complex narrative that's impossible to fact-check in the moment. Your opponent has to untangle truth from fiction, and most people will just give up. It's too much work. You're not winning on logic. You're winning by making a logical response impossible. What happens when you're clearly losing and need a quick escape? Enter the drunkard's distraction. Just like a drunkard who suddenly changes the subject to talk about a squirrel, you abruptly pivot the conversation when you're on the ropes. You're debating budget cuts and they have you cornered. You suddenly say, "You know, that reminds me. Did you see the email about the new project initiative?" It's a complete game changer, and it actually ties into our long-term financial health in a way we haven't discussed. Boom, the topic has changed. You've thrown them off balance. This move buys you precious time to regroup, or if you're lucky, it can derail the original argument completely. The key is to make the transition seem natural, even if it's a complete non sequitur. Let's talk about a more seductive approach: leading by the nose. This is all about securing small agreements that build momentum towards your ultimate goal. You start with simple, undeniable truths. We can all agree that efficiency is important, right? Yes. And we'd also agree that having happy, motivated employees is good for the company, wouldn't we? Of course, and a streamlined process would contribute to both efficiency and employee morale, correct? Yes, that makes sense. You're getting them into a pattern of saying yes once. You've built this yes ladder. It becomes much harder for them to say no when you present your final, larger point. They've already walked 90% of the way with you. Turning back now would feel illogical. Finally, when you're ready to close out the argument and claim your victory, you can use the sacred trio. This is a powerful rhetorical device where you structure your final point into a concise, memorable three-part statement. For example, to sum up, this plan is more cost-effective, it's easier to implement, and it delivers better results. It's the clear choice. There's something about the number 3 that sounds complete and authoritative. It's balanced, it's easy to remember, and it signals finality. It makes your conclusion sound like an indisputable fact, leaving little room for rebuttal. It's the verbal equivalent of a judge's gavel. And for the final blow, when you want to shut down the argument with a flourish, there's the knockout joke. This isn't about being a comedian. It's about using humor to disarm and deflate. Your opponent has just delivered a long, passionate monologue. Pause, look at them with a slight smile, and say something like, "Wow, you've clearly put a lot of thought into that. I haven't seen that much passion since my uncle argued with a self-checkout machine." It's a short, sharp joke that pokes fun at the intensity of the situation, not the person. It breaks the tension, often gets a laugh from onlookers, and makes it incredibly difficult for your opponent to return to their serious, aggressive stance. You've just taken all the air out of their sails with a single witty remark. So there you have it, 9 powerful, if a bit devious, techniques to help you win arguments even when you're on the losing side. From yielding to conquer to landing a knockout joke, these tools are all about understanding human psychology and mastering the art of persuasion. Use them wisely and perhaps use them for good. Now I'm curious, which of these have you seen in action, or maybe even used yourself? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more tips on navigating the complexities of communication.